Today will be 2 weeks ago when this all came to the forefront. And every morning we would wake up and get in our boxes, here's the new guidance that was written overnight.
Hello, and welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. We publish episodes twice a week about franchising and business. Each Monday, we'll release a 30-minute episode where we dive deep into a topic. Thursdays are our shorter, lighter episodes where we will discuss things like business resources or topics of personal growth. I am one of your hosts, Pete Gilfillan, and I'm joined with my business partner, Nat Truitt. And together we have every experience in business and franchise ownership. We have worked hard over the years to realize our dreams and control our own destinies. Our experience will help you become a better business owner and franchisee so that you can live life on your own terms. Geoff Seiber, it is a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. We're so thankful for you being here. We really wanted to spend some time talking to you today on our podcast because you are an industry expert in franchising and certainly in kind of funding or helping people capitalize their businesses. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know you started FranFund, you're the president and CEO, but tell us a little bit about kind of what you thought of as you created FranFund to help small businesses.
Well, Pete, I'd been in franchising all my life. Really, I started it as a driver at Domino's Pizza when I was in college because I was on a scholarship, but the scholarship didn't pay for beer or dates. And so I knew and I became a driver and went from there to work for the franchisee. And from working for that franchisee, I went to work for corporate, and that was in the huge growth years of Domino's Pizza when it was really kind of a ready, fire, aim mentality. I mean, it was just go, go, go. And I was able to kind of ride that wave and work my way up to within 4 or 5 years, became an area vice president in Chicago. Wow. So I knew that when we were looking for what were some of the things, back 13 years ago when we started this, that franchisees needed was financing. I'd been through a lot of other parts of the business prior to that, but the financing piece was the outlier. That franchisors didn't know what to do, franchisees didn't know what to do. Franchisors, quite frankly, tended to just push it aside and go, "You go figure that out, and come back and talk." And we felt like there was a need there that could be filled and a way to do that. And that's when I got interested in this particular area of franchising. So I'm much more of a franchise guy in the money business versus a finance guy trying to figure out franchising. And I got to tell you, it's a real advantage for me because finance guys don't completely understand the mentality of franchisees or the way the system works. And that's good for us.
Now, what kind of financial services do you provide for business owners in terms of, do you help them with SBA loans or using the retirement dollars? What services do you guys provide for?
We do several things, and we've done some. We've been in and out of some products over time based on the need. One of the primary vehicles that we use is what's referred to as the ROBS transaction, the rollover for business startup. And that's where you can take your qualified money, which is, your what a lot of people would call the retirement funds, but it's money that has some qualifications on it, whether it be a 401k or an IRA or those type of things. And you can move that into your business tax-free and penalty-free through a structure of you're just going to basically invest in your company the same way you would in your new company, the same way that you would invest in any other company that may be in the stock market or may not. Those are all very legal transactions. And really the basis of that law goes all the way back to 1974, the original ERISA laws that were put around the 401k program. That one piece for a lot of people is what they need. They can fund their entire business from that. For others, it becomes the equity injection into a loan product or a debt product. And we then the natural migration was to move into those products. On the SBA side, there are, we are not a bank, so therefore we don't have an SBA license, so we can't do those directly. So we broker those SBA loans through an assortment of banks. And what that does is give us access to a lot of different credit boxes with a lot of different banks. Different banks, different boards of directors, different parts of the country all look at things a little bit differently based on what they trust their risk profiles and their reading of the tea leaves of the marketplace to be. It gives us a true advantage on finding the right stuff for the franchisee. But we don't have access to every single bank in the country, and we don't pretend to do that. But we have access to quite a few, and we can usually find a really good home for them.
Yeah, and you guys understand the franchise business model, so you make it easier for those financial institutions to write the paper, for lack of better terms.
That's correct. And the great thing is I've got a great staff that understands that too.
Yeah.
It's been, they've been with me for a long time at this point. And most of them are several years and some of them decade or more in this process. And they not only stand our business philosophy of caring about our clients, but they also understand how the key parts of what has to happen to make a successful financing transaction happen.
And you're kind of an advocate with the IFA for funding companies or financial companies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have been on the supplier board and the board of directors as a member of the supplier board with the International Franchise Association, and continue to serve in that role. And I'm actually head of the governmental relations part, which has gotten to be real interesting over the last.
Let's get into that because
at first it was just some little political spats that were going on in California, and believe me, for the last 60 days, it's been pretty interesting to be for the calls that come in and out of here. To say it's an honor, it is. I mean that they look to you for those things and to be that advocate. And I've been on everything just in the last few days from a small group of business people with the president on a conference call, and you say conference call, you get to listen when the president's on the phone. So you can call it conference if you want, or you can tell that he's spinning what he's doing, But we also have had Senator Marco Rubio on like a 12-person call, Senator Cornyn on like a 12-person call, and I'm actually going to be the IFA's representative of the Congressional Black Caucus on Tuesday, which is really quite key to what we want to get done over the next several weeks. And I think we'll touch on this later on where the PPP program is. But it's a chance for me to talk to them and lay out our case as a small business owner.
Yeah, Nat and I did a presentation or a podcast. We talked a little bit about this. This is a time where we need leaders, and certainly you're a leader helping businesses and helping the companies through. One of the things is that with this COVID-19, we're in new space. We've never, it's been 100 years since we've had a pandemic and what it's done in terms of shutting down our economy. And I think the government has done a pretty good job of coming up with programs to help businesses get through these tough times and certainly even help people when we come out of this. So tell us a little bit about, because I know the CARES Act, $2.1 trillion, correct? So tell us a little bit about how a piece of that has helped small businesses.
Well, I think you're right on, Pete, on some of the things that government has done. And there's an awful lot of criticism that will come out. I mean, because everybody likes to critique, right? But when you look at just the payroll protection program that is, or paycheck protection program, when you look at that piece, over the last 14 days, the SBA has processed more loans through the PPP and they're approved. All the funding's not out yet. But the approval process is in, so all the closings aren't done. But they've done more than they did in the last 14 years.
Wow.
In a situation where there was no framework. There were no rules when we started. Today will be 2 weeks ago when this all came to the forefront. And every morning we would wake up and get in our boxes, here's the new guidance that was written overnight. Now, that led to a lot of we were giving webinars and trying to get people updated. We've been around, we've been to so many organizations, so many groups, including our own third-party administration clients, that we would have to preface everything by going, this is what we know today. This is where it is right now at this moment in time, because it's changing quite dramatically. And there was one webinar that I was giving with a friend of mine with Palm Beach Atlantic University, franchising school down there, had a broad-based, it was a lot of different franchisors. And midway through the call, I get a sign held up to me that says, you need to get off the phone now. And so we wound the webinar up, and they had completely changed from the 4% 10-year loans to at that point in time, a 0.5% 2-year loans, which the next morning was a 1% 2-year loan. So if that tells you the way that things were going, so every bit of strategy that you were giving to franchisees the afternoon before and the 2 webinars before the one I happened to be on turned out to be like, okay, we need to do over. So we just sent out new tapes and things, but that's how quickly it was changing. And I say that only because the banks were able to, while there's a lot of criticism you can give, and I don't think they got everything right, But they certainly responded to all of those tweaks through it and still got that money out of the program. Now, it's not enough, but they still got all that money.
So let's take a step back. So the PPP program, tell us a little bit about the structure of it, what it was designed to kind of cover with the program.
Yeah, here's what where the Senate started with it, which the Senate primarily wrote the bill, the House added some bangles on it, and then it was passed. But it was designed to help protect the payroll of the businesses so that they know when this is over where you go back to work, so that you're not out looking for a job because you got laid off. In other words, what they're trying to do is to protect that part of the business structure. In order to do that, instead of putting people on, I mean, here's how the math kind of works and the logic works, is instead of putting everybody on state by state unemployment by laying them off, if they can give money to the employers, they can funnel that out to the employees and keep them on their payrolls, keep them coming to their location. They're still their employer. They're still getting their benefits, those things through that employer, rather than going through all of the COBRA and all of those associated things. And then when this all fires up back in it looks like 60 to 90 days at max, the economy would come back. So in other words, because that the federal government would have ended up bailing out the states for the unemployment costs because they're going to be so overwhelming. And so it was, instead of doing that, let's do this. Great intention. It is not let me throw money into my business and let me use it, do whatever I need to do to keep my business going. So it can only be used, what can be used for payroll and associated benefits, all employee benefits that you have traditionally paid prior to that, for your rent. If you have a mortgage on your building, you own the building, you can pay your interest payments on the mortgage, but not the mortgage itself. In other words, they're not going to help you buy your building. And you can pay for utilities, with utility structures that you may have had coming in, electricity, gas, internet, those type of things that come in, so that you're able to make those payments during this time when you likely have reduced business. It's not for, let me build my inventory, let me start a new marketing program, let me buy a BMW. It's not for any of those costs. And so what I don't think gets enough emphasis is that it is just those issues. And the idea is that it is for the employees, whether you're open or not. As a matter of fact, if you're not open, it should be even more valuable to you, because here's the money to pay your employees and keep your staff while you have no revenue coming in to pay them. So that was the purpose.
So the way it works is they give you a loan. It has to go towards payroll or rent, and you get so much money. And if you do that, if you put the money into rent or into payroll, then you don't have to pay that back, right? It's forgiven. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's forgiven. Now, the forgiveness process is still a work in progress.
I'm sure it is.
We haven't gotten final guidance on that, but the general terms of that are a couple of things they want to emphasize. One is that you have the same number of employees at the end of this time frame as you had when you came into it. Now, that basis of where that timeline starts and that FTE number is either going to be your previous 12 months, what your average number of FTEs were, or perhaps what you had on February 15th. We don't know. Okay. The law is vague, and we don't know what their final guidance is going to be. I think a much more fair number is the 12 months trailing, because if somebody just hired 3 people because they thought a boom was coming, they shouldn't be required to keep the staff. But we'll see what happens with it. And so that number, if you are at that number or above, when you get to the end to June, when we get to June 30th, that's the first check mark. The second check mark is if you used at least 75% or more of those funds for payroll and payroll related expenses, which can be benefits, healthcare, retirement costs, all those things. And you didn't reduce people's pay. So you can't have cut your more than, and I know this is a different 75%, more than 75%. So there can be some payroll reductions. And a lot of that is if you lost this person but hired that person and they're coming in at a different pay rate, sure. it gives you meet those criteria, and you can get 100% forgiveness. If you don't, it gets reduced percentage-wise by what if you only have 9 of your 10 employees left, well, you you would be eligible up. And currently, and again, this could change, for up to 90% forgiveness. The idea being they don't want to punish you, but they don't want to reward you either. Now, what happens with the next question should be, what happens with the money that you've taken that's not forgiven? Well, it goes into a 1% loan that has a 2-year term, that all payments are deferred for a year. Then it's interest only, and you have a balloon at the end.
Holy cow.
So, now, again, today, I'll qualify that. I don't see that changing a lot, but it could. They could ask for, in that first year, they could ask for some interim payments. But the idea is to have it balloon. And then if you still have it, you could rebank it. I mean, if you're an ongoing concern, an ongoing business, the bank that's holding that note would probably rebank it for you. Most of them will be small, which is led to being a problem for some of the banks, for some of the smaller people getting the funding to begin with. But most of them will be small amounts because the bulk of it will be.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned earlier that the $350 billion for the program has been allocated, I guess would be the best term, right?
Right.
One of the questions I have for you is, did the big businesses get the money first in terms of sequence and going out? Did kind of the small to medium-sized business owners maybe didn't get processed fast enough?
There's a lot of things that happened that I don't think they foresaw. One is that at the very end of this process in the Senate, there was a small little rider that nobody, I mean, I know that people understood it, but nobody outside of maybe banking understood it, was that there's what they call an NAICS code, which is a national code that gives you a number for whatever type of business you are. Sure. Anything that starts with the number 72 is in the hospitality field. That can be hotels, restaurants, anything else down that guideline. There's probably 500 different NAICS codes that start with 72. They approved those guys, even though they may have had more than 500 employees. The idea was that you had to have under 500, which would have solved some of this. And they approved those guys and took away the affiliation rules. So if you could get up to $10 million, but you could only do it once because of all the affiliations. Well, they made all of those guys eligible, and then they broadened the affiliation rules where individual corporations kind of owned by the same person could all become eligible for $10 million. And so you had, when that came through, you had a weekend that comes out on Friday. You had a weekend where most of the banks are still trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, because there was no guidance until late Friday afternoon. When Secretary Mnuchin said, we're going to do loan on Thursday night, said, we're going to do loans tomorrow. I was actually on a group text at that point with about 5 guys with the head Jerry Wilkinson from the head of NAGLE, National Association of Government Guaranteed Lenders. They're kind of the training arm of the SBA. And I said, we're going to do what? And he gave me that emoji with the shrugged shoulders guy, like, I don't know what we're doing. But we were able to do some things by the end of the day, Friday, but really nothing of consequence. And everybody, worked 15, 20 hours a day over Saturday, Sunday. Well, the places that had, literally office floors of accountants and document preppers and all that sort of thing. In other words, those bigger groups were able to move all their stuff in right away.
Yeah.
And you're starting to hear about that now. I think it wasn't a bad idea to have those guys eligible.
Sure.
It was just a bad idea to take all of that and not raise the pool of funds.
Right.
I mean, if you did it and said, okay, that's going to be X amount of dollars of this pool, raise the pool, I think you could have gotten the votes for that without any problem. I just don't think it was as well thought out as it could have been. But everything was in a rush then.
Well, absolutely, and they were trying to move fast. I get it. So my question for you is, what do you think? Do you think they're going to be able to put more money in or approve more money to go into the program?
Well, Pete, I thought if you'd have asked me this like Monday, I would have said it's a layup. Nobody's going to want to vote against this. Nobody's going to want to be the group that's on record that says, no, we're not doing this. But there is such friction between the two parties right now in Washington that there is such a lack of trust. And some of this on the Republican side goes back to whatever you felt of how the House handled this the last time and kind of held it up for a week for a bunch of additional things that they're saying, no, we're not doing anything. Well, the Democrats have there are some good points. I mean, we just went through this program. Let's fix it. And let's do some things to it that make it better, which one of them is, let's get rid of the smaller guy. How can we channel that, right? And I'm a big advocate of that. And so there's more friction there than there should be, but I don't think that this thing will go much past Tuesday, Wednesday of next week.
Okay. Got it. That's good.
I don't want anybody to panic. I've told people that are in our queues that their applications are now approved and ready for SBA numbers, and there's no SBA numbers to give them in other words, to get them funded, that in all likelihood, they're going to be funded. But I can't guarantee that. I'm just saying it's my belief that that's going to happen. But where I think that who's gotten kind of, here's some irony for you. So they held all the sole proprietors out to even apply until the Friday of the second week.
I know that, yeah.
Which was Friday a week ago, right? The guidance for that came out Tuesday night. So the banks could take them in, but they had no idea what they were supposed to do with them. It came out Tuesday night. Wednesday, you had a day of now they're sorting through that on Wednesday to go, okay, here's what we do. Thursday, they've run out of money. The training on what to do is at 1:00 this afternoon. So I'll be on training for something that I hope we're able to use next week. My staff and I will be on there to go, hopefully we can do this. But that's how quickly this all moved and how fast things have happened. But because of that, some of the smaller loan folks under $100,000 have gotten kind of the short end of the stick here. And it's because there were so many bigger loans to come through that they were trying to push the money out, that the banks at first they were trying to do them in order of when they came in, but it became let's get the bigger ones out of the way so then we can spend time with the smaller guys. And it wasn't an intentional thing of I don't think anybody goes, we don't like those guys. Right. It was just that those smaller loans, that back end tail, if you will, that I got a $50,000 loan. I got 80% of it forgiven. So I've got a $10,000 now 2-year, 1% loan, and the bank has to service that as part of the upfront fee that they get. So they get 5%. They get 5 points on the front of that. So they get a $2,500 fee to do all the documents, get all the stuff out front, then to get all the documents back in for forgiveness and make all of those, and then service a $10,000 loan for 2 years. There's no money there.
Right.
The bank's upside down, and we've got to fix that so that it becomes something that they can do. You require it if you're going to do the others. Require a percentage of it, where it starts to balance, or get them more money through that process where that they are anxious to get that.
Well, thank you for your leadership of trying to help people figure this out, right? So one of the things is that there's other programs out there also as part of the package, right? Like accelerated depreciation. I think there's stuff like SBA loans for people that do new loans. I think they're making the payments for new loans, right? Is that correct?
A big part. There's a couple of things. One, the accelerated depreciation was something that was a win for us at the beginning of the year before all this started, and we were like, okay, we're doing good, right? Well, that's kind of gotten lost. I'm glad you still recognize it. It will really help someone that is in an equipment-heavy business to actually get things more back in line with some of the flaws that were in the tax reduction when the Tax Cut Act that passed earlier in the Trump administration. It kind of cleans up a lot of things that were there that were unintentional, and we're able to get that through and that cleaned up. But the bigger piece is part of the CARES Act was they're going to make the government's going to make the next 6 payments for any SBA guaranteed loan on behalf of the borrower. It doesn't have to be new. It can be any existing.
Wow.
And that's principal and interest. And it's not deferment. It's not forgiveness, because forgiveness is taxable. They're making the payment. So they're actually making principal and interest payments directly to the lender on behalf of the borrower. And those, ironically, the guidance for that came out this morning. It was in the overnight stuff that came in today on exactly how that program is going to work. But and it's really straightforward. It's just really when is the start date and what can qualify. And there was a thing: does it start in April or does it start is it the April payment? The bill passed on March 27th. If your payment was due April 1st, you probably made it. And then what happens to deferrals that they had already made that were allowed under it? So if you had a 6 months deferral, a 90-day deferral, so those deferrals will happen after these 6 months, so you don't lose the deferral. So you have people that could not make payments for possibly 9 to 12 months. I still have to make those up at some point, 6 months of it, but it does help the cash flow a lot. And the payments will come directly to the lender from the SBA. And if you've already made your payment, which was the major thing in here today, you can apply for credit back to the lender, and the lender can get it from the thing. Anyway, you'll get your 6 months. It's just a matter of, you want to go through the process of getting it back right now, or do you want to just add it on to the next 6 months? So,
right. And do they have to apply for that, or is that automatically done?
Automatic. It's automatic.
And there's still money for that program?
That money is fully funded. There's not that is something that I think they were able to determine what that need was based on the amount of loans they had on the books. That was one that they could calculate a little more rationally than this other program.
Perfect. And then just to be clear, so people that write a new SBA loan, guaranteed SBA loan, they may also be eligible to have the first 6 months paid?
If they close that loan by the end of September, I think it's September 27th is the actual day, so I'll hesitate by saying the end of September, but basically through most of the month of September, they are eligible for that program, where those first 6 payments would be made, both principal and interest. And again, it's paying down the note, not pushing it out, not saying you don't have any payments for a while, we'll kick it in. It's interest and principal are paid on your behalf, and again, tax-free.
Is that going to run out of money?
I don't think so, Pete. That's kind of a different pool of money.
Okay.
There's plenty of money here. It's just that we don't have any more that's allocated through the SBA in that particular program. The SBA has other pools of money. The guarantee pool for traditional 7A and 504 loans is still very flush with funds, but you just can't move them around. Everybody has to stay in their own bucket.
Okay. So lots of programs out there to help small businesses, right? So the nature of your business is you help small businesses. How has FranFund, how has all this changed the way in which you help your customers? I got to imagine you guys are working a ton of hours and all this kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit about how this has impacted you're taking care of your customers.
Well, one, we are working a lot of hours. And I think that my background of being a franchise guy in the money business as opposed to a finance guy, I think kind of may have or really kicked in with our third-party administrative clients, the people who have done their rollover and stuff through us, and we continue to do the servicing of those programs for them. In that, okay, those are my franchisees. What are they going to need, and what are the things that we can do for them? And that got us very aggressive into the PPP program. As to how can we get this explained to them? How can we get them queued up with their local banks, with other banks, with funders that we can help find to provide this, get their packages done, get their stuff. So we pivoted not only our loan processing team, but took all of our third-party administration folks who work all day in retirement plan functions and trained them to be loan processors over the weekend. Wow. And we set up software. We had software that got written from Friday to Monday, where that everybody could follow it. Thankfully, we had our software provider said, "Yep, we can do it. We will do it. We don't know if we can do it, but this is worth trying to do." And that really helped so many of our clients get funding. Now, we didn't get them all. That's the frustrating part. Is yesterday, as we're seeing this thing shut down, all of them didn't get through, and especially it's the smaller ones that we're leveraging up our bigger ones to get smaller ones done, but we can't put. We can attach a couple to one and another to another, but we weren't as successful in it as we wanted to be. I think we'll be teed up well if we get some more money, but we did that shift. The second is making sure all of our people know about this program where that they can get that they are getting those payments made on their behalf. We're pushing that out to all of our existing clients. And we will continue to do that. We're adding in some PR functions on what to do as you reopen your business. We're adding in how to bring your employees back if you've had them on furlough. What are some things there? So we've got some speakers that are coming on webinars there. So we're trying. A lot of our franchisors are young franchisors that may not have thousands of units, and they don't have that support system or that access to those folks that, quite frankly, because I've been doing this for a long, long time, that I can go and grab a pretty talented person to talk to them. So
help them, yeah.
We're trying to provide a lot of that for them.
So the real question is, and Nat and I work with people looking to invest in franchises, right? So we're just kind of matchmakers. The question we get is, with all this craziness, we're sheltered at home, and so the question is, as we come out of this, is this a good time to invest in a business?
I think it will be. And several things. I've been through, without showing my age, I've been through a couple of these in the past. The S&L crisis was a big change back in the 90s, and then the .com bubble was a big change, and then of course we had 9/11, which was a big change, and all of these various things that have come along, including the last monetary crisis went to an 08/09. And so you see these things happen, and what happens is there's a shift there's always an opportunity. A lot of it involves real estate. A lot of it involves access to personnel. A lot of it involves in that people are willing to make a change, whether it is you as a business owner or a really great staff that is just saying, I'm not going through that with that guy again. I saw how he treated me in this situation, and so there's a real, whenever there's an event like this, there tends to be a lot of change available, which leads to opportunity. Yeah. And it tends to come out, we tend to come out stronger as we come out. I think the last recession didn't have quite that growth curve that they always had in the past. It was a little bit softer. I think this one may be steeper than what we've seen because the fundamentals of the economy were pretty strong as we rolled into this. I mean, very strong. Yeah. This wasn't something that was steady decline over 3 or 4 quarters. It was just a big slap in the face that as it comes out, I think we'll see a lot of, it'll take a couple of quarters. There's no question, but I think you'll see a lot of increase and a lot of increased productivity in every industry across the board.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think there's going to be availability. I mean, prior to COVID-19, you'd walk into a place and they'd always be saying, we're hiring, right? And there was just a lack of labor. And now there's going to be people that need jobs. And the crazy thing I'm seeing, Geoff, is that people are still getting jobs. I had 2 candidates I was working with this week that literally accepted jobs. So there is still hiring out there, which really surprised me, but that is good news.
Well, if this tells you anything, we're hiring. We're having to learn how to interview via Zoom, which is we're a very tight business in that our employees are very close, and it's always been that even as we've gotten larger, and we're all part of our leadership team call. We have one every morning. It was how are we actually going to determine those characteristics that we all think are so important? I mean, we have our interview process is like round robin with people and over several different things. And normally if it's an executive level person, you take them to lunch and see how they eat and talk and treat the servers and everything else. But okay, we got to figure out how to do that on Zoom. So
Nat and I wouldn't have a chance to get a job with you, clearly. So, very good. Well, Geoff, we want to thank you, one, for your leadership. We need people like you that are helping steer everybody through this. This is so important. We have leaders that step up. And so thank you so much. And then thank you for helping all these small businesses too. I mean, they really need the help. And I agree with you 100%. This is going to be a time coming forward, we're going to be able to excel. We're going to come out of this. We'll make it. Americans, we always do that. This is our time now to move forward.
Well, I agree. We have to do it. And there's more to come. There's more things that I think are going to be pushed through the pipe. I think you're going to see some the guaranteed amounts on the SBA go maybe back to 90% like we had for a brief time in 08/09. That's a pretty serious discussion right now. And then we got to get this other thing off our plate first. And then I think we can, and they're looking at some payroll tax rebates for some federal payroll cost rebates for employers to keep things going. So I think you'll see they're not finished. There is going to be more money pumped in. It's now, but the first thing to do is get this PPP.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hire Yourself podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us a rating, and leave a comment on iTunes or wherever you're listening to our podcast. Hire Yourself offers some great resources on our website at hireyourself.com. And if you would like more content regularly, follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We look forward to you listening again to help you on your journey of living life on your own terms.